Now, 26-year-old Ali Harbi Ali will spend the rest of his life in prison for murdering Southend West MP Sir David Amess. At yesterday's sentencing, Mr Justice Sweeney handed the terrorist a whole life order. Ali Harbi Ali, an Islamic State supporter, had claimed he was an NHS worker moving to Southend before stabbing Sir David 20 times at a routine surgery in Leigh-on-Sea. Turning to the horrified witnesses, Ali proclaimed that he wanted, quote, every Parliament minister who signed up for the bombing of Syria, who agreed to the Iraq war, to die. And leaving a fact aside that Sir David was not a government minister, he said that Sir David deserved to die, a really confused individual. How prevalent a problem, however, is radical Islamic terrorism in the UK, and what more can be done to put a stop to it? Well, let's talk through this now with Dr. Rakib Ehsan, a social policy analyst. Welcome to the programme. First of all, I suppose, how large a problem is this in the UK? We've seen an MP murdered, we've seen a car bomb go off outside a Liverpool hospital. What's going on?
Well, I think, Tom, that we have a very serious problem in the UK when it comes to Islamist extremism, and we certainly have a problem when it comes to discussing it. If we're talking about the numbers, there have been recent figures which suggest that the MI5's broader terror-related watch list, that in the region of 8 to 9 in 10 of the individuals on that watch list are Islamist extremists. And when we're looking at this phenomenon more broadly, one of the main problems, Tom, is that there is a reluctance within our political and media classes to really discuss the dangers of Islamist extremism. And I think that was demonstrated in the aftermath of Sir David Amess's terror-related killing, where you had people talk about social media anonymity. Others were talking about our confrontational and adversarial political culture, which has existed for decades, primarily because of our largely two-party system. So I think, Tom, the main issue that we have is that there's a great deal of deflection as opposed to identifying the key ideological motivations behind these barbaric acts.
It is remarkable that actually particularly some Conservative members of Parliament, people that you would think would be some of the first to call out radical Islamic terrorism when they see it, was talking about mean tweets and etiquette on social media as if it had anything to do with the barbaric Islamic State ideology. Are we at risk here when we're dealing with Islamist terrorism in this country, that some people want to attach their own particular policy hobby horses onto the issue, whether it's internet censorship or anything else, and we get distracted, therefore, from the crux of the issue?
I couldn't agree more, Tom. There was discussions about issues surrounding online harms and social media anonymity, and then referring to this as David's Law. But if the government was very serious about responding to what happened to Sir David Amess, then it would really step up its efforts in terms of discussing Islamist extremism and coming up with robust policies in terms of tackling it. But I'd make this point, Tom, that there are people who ultimately they want to restrict the debate. They say that if we talk too much about Islamist extremism, this is almost a form of anti-Muslim prejudice. But that is a fundamental disservice to law-abiding, patriotic, humanitarian British Muslims who, much like the general population, are deeply concerned about the threat of Islamist extremism. Indeed, the threat of Islamist extremism is more immediate for them because it is within their local communities. So I think that if we fail to discuss matters of Islamist extremism and that we do not look at faults within our existing counter-terrorism structures, then what we are doing is making a number of local communities across the country more unsafe and more unstable.
Think of anything more perverse than trying to claim that calling out radical Islamist terrorism as if that is somehow normal amongst Islamic communities. I mean, that seems just an incredibly offensive thing to do, and yet so often that's the sort of avenue of thought by which many trying to be generous and open-hearted go down. I'm afraid we've run to the end of this conversation. We must have you back soon. Dr. Rakib Ehsan, thank you so much for talking us through that issue then.